Welcome to the video lesson that's related to maximizing your brain's potential, Psych for Your Life, that's at the end of the chapter. Now, one of the things I wanted to do was look at how environment affected biology. And in this case, they looked at the environment of rats in different environments and the effect on the brain. So on the left-hand side, they have a rat in what they call an impoverished environment. There weren't a lot of other rats to interact with. There weren't any interesting things to do in this environment. And what they found was that on the average, there wasn't a lot of connections between different brain cells for these rats. When you look at the enriched environment where there are other rats to play with, as you can see in this picture, different elevation for the rats to climb on and toys for them to interact with. And what they found was that in the average rat brain, there were a lot more connections in their brain cells. You'll see very similar things in humans, although it gets to be a little bit more complicated with humans, is that when you look at humans, when you look at adults who have led a mentally challenging life, they try new things, they challenge themselves, they develop more neural connections in the brain, kind of like the rat brain cells. What they find in these people is that those who had an enriched environment, those who learned new things, those who challenged themselves, those who tried new activities, and didn't do a lot of the routine things, who had more neural connections, although they were as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, they were less impaired by it. And the general way I think about it is that if you have lots of neural connections in your brain, it's a lot easier for the messages to get from point A to point B, even if there are some tangles or there's some impairments to get the message from point A to point B. If you look at the impoverished environment and the rat brain cell that's associated with it, if there's not a lot of neural connections, it's very difficult when there is broken connections for the message to get from point A to point B. In enriched environments, if there is a pathway that's blocked, then you have alternative routes. I live in Oregon in the United States, and as a metaphor for this idea, if you were traveling from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington, if Interstate 5 is the only way that you know how to make that trip and there's a traffic accident, well, you're going to have a lot of problems from going from Portland to Seattle and Seattle back to Portland. Your pathway is blocked and you're going to have a hard time making that connection. However, if you have lots of connections, if you have lots of understandings of the different roads from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington, you can have this alternative route to get to and from Portland to and from Seattle. So these neural connections make it much more likely the signal is going to get from point A to point B. Now, it doesn't have to be Portland to Washington, Seattle, Washington. Pick whatever applies to you. Now, what I want you to do is to think about what are some of the things that you are going to do to lead this enriched environment. What are some of the things that you're going to do to challenge yourself? What are some of the things that you're going to do to push yourselves? What are some of the things that you are going to do to try new activities? And hopefully think about it now, and then when the time comes, you're much more likely to do those new things. This ends the video lesson for the section at the end of the book, Maximizing Your Brain Potential. Thank you.